You know, Area 51, it's like this magnet for the weird and the unexplained, right? Everyone like the theory, aliens, government cover-ups, you name it.
Right.
But the stuff we got to look at, it's not just theories, it's firsthand accounts.
Oh, yeah.
We're talking Bob Lazar claiming he worked on actual alien spacecraft. And then on the flip side, we've got these folks who were sworn to secrecy, developing top secret aircraft, the real deal.
Yeah. Got to separate fact from fiction, right? And it gets wild.
Wild doesn't even begin to cover it. I mean, getting to the bottom of this, that's our mission here.
Absolutely. And to really understand all this, we've got to rewind a bit, go back to the beginning.
Okay, back to the beginning, I like it.
So picture it. 1955, the Cold War is in full swing. The U.S. is, well, terrified of the Soviet Union.
Yeah, can't really blame them.
And Area 51, it's born right in the heart of this tension, secrecy. It wasn't just an option, it was the name of the game.
Yeah.
And that's key to understanding everything that comes next.
Okay, so Cold War paranoia makes sense. I mean, you're living with that constant tension. Any little thing out of the ordinary, it's going to look a lot more, well, extraordinary, you know?
Oh, absolutely.
So let's talk Bob Lazar.
Okay.
This guy claims he didn't just work at Area 51, but at this super secret facility nearby called S4.
Right, S4.
And he says he worked on recovered alien spacecraft.
Not just worked on them, he claims he was reverse engineering them. I mean, think about that, taking something apart piece by piece to figure out how it ticks.
And then what, trying to build your own?
Potentially. The holy grail of technological espionage.
And he claimed these craft were powered by something called Element 115, right?
Element 115. And this is where it gets really wild. See, back then, Element 115 wasn't even on the periodic table. Scientists hadn't discovered it yet.
Hold on. For those of us who, haven't cracked open a chemistry textbook in a while, what's the big deal with this Element 115?
It's all about atoms. Every element, it's got a certain number of protons in its nucleus, right?
Right, basic building blocks, yeah.
Exactly. So Element 115 should have 115 protons. Makes sense. But elements that big, they're usually super unstable. Like they exist for a fraction of a second and then poof, gone.
Okay, so this Element 115, it was basically science fiction.
Pretty much. But Lazar, he's claiming this Element 115. Not only was it real, it was the key to these spacecraft flying. He said it was stable and it powered their propulsion system. Something about manipulating gravity.
Hold up, so we're talking anti-gravity, flying saucers, the works.
According to Lazar, yeah.
But if he was telling the truth, you'd think the government would have, swooped in, shut him up, erased everything.
Well, that's exactly what Lazar says they did. He claims they tried to make him disappear, erase his identity like he never existed.
Okay, so we're already deep down the rabbit hole here, but we've got to address the elephant in the room, Bob Lazar.
Yeah, there's some baggage there.
To put it mildly.
To put it mildly. See, not everything Lazar said has held up over time. Like, he claimed he went to MIT, Caltech, these big deal schools. Turns out, no record of him ever being there.
And then there's the whole other thing.
Right. The illegal brothel charge. Not exactly a glowing endorsement of his character.
So naturally, people started wondering, is this guy for real? Or is he spinning a tall tale?
It did make it hard to take him at his word. I mean, could someone with that kind of past be trusted to tell the truth about something as big as, well, aliens?
It makes you wonder if he had something to gain. Was it all just a hoax for attention? Or was he really discredited to keep him quiet, just like he claimed?
It's a tough one. But here's a wrinkle. Years later, they actually discovered Element 115.
Get out.
Yeah, for real. Officially called Moscovium.
Okay, but does it power alien spaceships?
That's the thing. It behaves nothing like what Lazar described. It's extremely radioactive, decays super fast, definitely not powering any spaceships, at least not that we know of.
So that kind of pokes a hole in his story.
It does. But it didn't stop people from believing him. In fact, his story got a whole new life recently. That documentary, his appearance on Joe Rogan, it all brought him back into the spotlight.
They say no such thing as bad publicity, right? And speaking of which, didn't the FBI raid his business back in 2017?
They did. Added more fuel to the fire, for sure. But turned out that was about a murder investigation, not a hunt for Element 115. And through it all, Lazar's never confirmed or denied having it. He's kept his mouth shut on that one.
So we've got this guy claiming he's worked on technology that seems straight out of Star Trek. Is the government covering it up? Did he make the whole thing up? It's a lot to take in.
Yeah, it really is.
But while Lazar's story is definitely captivating, we've got these other people we know for a fact worked at Area 51. What was their experience like? I mean, we're talking intense security clearances, psychological evaluations, the whole 9 yards. These folks couldn't even tell their families what they were up to.
And don't forget the backdrop, the Cold War. Everything was life or death, us versus them. The work they were doing, developing things like the U2 spy plane, it was top-tier national security stuff. The pressure must have been immense.
Oh, absolutely. Speaking of the U2, our sources say that thing was at the heart of some early UFO sightings. People saw it up there, way high, and thought, aliens.
It's true. Back then, nobody had seen anything fly that high. We're talking 70,000 feet, practically space in the 1950s. So yeah, people freaked out.
And what did the government do? Did they clear things up?
Nope. They denied everything, just flat out said it wasn't them.
Talk about a recipe for conspiracy theories. They've got these incredible planes flying high enough to spark UFO rumors, but it's all hush-hush. What else were they hiding out there at Area 51?
How about a plane so secretive they had to invent new ways to even get it to the base? I'm talking about the Oxcart. This thing was so top secret, its existence wasn't even acknowledged for years.
Okay, now you've got my attention. This Oxcart sounds next level. What made it so special?
Picture a spy plane, 3 times the speed of sound, over 2,000 miles per hour. This thing was so high, so fast, it was practically invisible to radar. Revolutionizing spying, that was the goal. The U.S. could spy on anyone, anywhere, and no one would be the wiser.
It's like something out of a spy movie. All this secrecy, though, it makes you wonder, what was the cost?
It's a question we've got to ask even today. Advancements are great, but not at any cost. Think about those Area 51 workers' years of living double lives, the toll it must have taken, and what happens when something goes wrong.
Speaking of things going wrong, our sources mentioned an Oxcart crash. What happened there?
This is where things get really interesting. 1963, a test pilot named Kim Collins, he's flying an Oxcart, and it crashes during a training exercise. Now, plane crashes happen, even with experimental stuff, but the government's reaction, that's what's strange.
What'd they do?
Full-on cover-up mode, like something out of a movie. They swoop in, recover the wreckage, silence everyone involved. Pilot Kim Collins, they hit him with hypnosis, truth serum, the works, just to be sure he didn't spill any secrets. Then they tell the public it was a totally different plane.
They just lied.
And get this, they claimed the plane was carrying a nuclear weapon.
Wait, a nuke? Why would they say that?
To scare people off, of course. They knew if word got out about this top-secret spy plane going down, people would ask questions. So they created a nuclear scare to keep everyone away.
Wow. That's both smart and, well, incredibly messed up. And they almost got away with it too, right?
Almost. But you can't hide everything forever. Decades later, debris from that crash was found, despite their best efforts. And this is where it gets even more interesting. Remember those UFO sightings we talked about, the ones sparked by the U2?
Yeah.
Well, some people think the government, they used those UFO stories on purpose as cover for the Oxcart.
Hold on, you're saying they intentionally used people's fascination with UFOs to hide their own secret project?
It's a theory, but it makes you think, right? What's easier? Explaining away strange lights in the sky as aliens, or admitting you've got top-secret spy planes zipping around that could be mistaken for UFOs. It's the perfect cover story.
So, wait, let me get this straight. You're saying there's this whole layer of, like, Cold War paranoia, people seeing things in the sky they couldn't explain.
Right.
But at the same time, the government might have been, what, using that fear to their advantage?
It's a possibility. I mean, think about it. It creates this really interesting situation. You've got Area 51 already shrouded in secrecy, and now you've got these real, tangible events like the Oxcart crash that they're covering up.
And feeding into this whole UFO narrative.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder how much of what we think we know about Area 51, how much of that is colored by this sort of, well, deliberate misinformation.
And it makes Bob Lazar's story, I know, it makes it harder to just dismiss, you know?
I get it. It's like suddenly alien spaceships, they don't seem quite as far-fetched when you put them up against this backdrop of, well, government cover-ups and Cold War conspiracies.
Right. Like, how do you even begin to separate fact from fiction when you're dealing with a place like Area 51?
You've got to be skeptical. That's the key.
Yeah.
We can't just accept everything we hear at face value, especially with a topic like this, with so much history, so much speculation.
It's like you said before, critical thinking. That's got to be our guide here.
Absolutely. We've got to ask the tough questions, look at all sides of the story, and sometimes be okay with not having all the answers.
Yeah.
Because that's part of what makes Area 51 so fascinating, isn't it? That element of mystery.
It really is. I mean, even today, we're talking decades later, they're still operating out there, pushing the boundaries. It makes you wonder, what are they working on now? What haven't they told us?
That's the million-dollar question, right? And honestly, that's part of the intrigue. The fact that there are still these unanswered questions, these secrets hidden away.
It's like the more you learn about Area 51, the more you realize you don't know.
Exactly.
It reminds you that there's still so much out there, so much we haven't uncovered. It's kind of exciting, in a way.
It is exciting. It's a reminder that the world is a much stranger, much more mysterious place than we often give it credit for.
So where do we land on all of this?
Well, we've got Bob Lazar with his wild stories of alien tech, and then we've got the very real history of Area 51, the development of top-secret aircraft, all this cloak and dagger stuff fueled by Cold War anxieties.
It's a lot to untangle.
It really is. And honestly, it's up to each of us to decide what we believe. But I think we can all agree, Area 51, it's more than just a dot on a map. It's a symbol of this, well, this collision between secrecy, technology, and the limits of what we know.
Absolutely. And it's a story that's still being written.
Who knows what the future holds for Area 51?
That's the beauty of it. It could be anything. But one thing's for sure, people will keep talking about it, keep speculating, keep searching for answers.
And who knows, maybe one day those secrets will be revealed. Or maybe, just maybe,
Yeah.
the truth really is out there.
Until then, we'll keep digging. Well, that about wraps up our deep dive into Area 51. Hopefully this has given you something to think about.
Lots to ponder.
We've just scratched the surface here. There's a whole universe of information out there just waiting to be explored.